Yeah, but that's like, I didn't even map anything hard back then. Well, unless you consider 6 stars hard.
I mean, most people do, yes.
My first map was 6.4 stars. Okay.
Hello there, so when thinking about mappers, Mazzerin comes across as an anomaly for too many reasons. Last week we talked about how prominent anime is in the game, but Mazzerin is one of the few people staunchly opposed to it. He exclusively maps a genre of music that barely any mappers in the game touch, and at a difficulty level that even fewer people are willing to reach. Also, each of his ranked maps is more than 6.5 stars, unlike 99% of other mappers he hasn't even made an insane difficulty before, and he's broken the record for the highest star rating on a ranked map. Twice. So Mazzerin has a bit of a reputation, which could easily make one wonder, how does someone get to this point? Like, what made him walk down a path so different from ordinary mappers? While it's obviously impossible to account for every factor, I think Mazzerin has an interesting background that connects to how he's developed as a mapper, and to learn about it, we went over some aspects together about his mapping and pre-mapping history, starting with the kind of music he maps.
Recently, a real-life friend asked me what kind of songs hype me up the most, and most of them happen to be the ones I had already mapped. I mainly map metal and prefer the more extreme and technical genres because they have less musically repetitive parts. There are barely any maps in those two of songs that I really like, and if there are, the maps often aren't too great. As I said, I really wanted to play good songs on OSU at first, and I ignored all the songs I don't like, so that's a part of the reason I started mapping.
For many mappers, that's a relatable cause for sure. One of OSU's strongest appeals is that you can play maps of any song, so it's depressing to see that your favorite genre or musician is practically abandoned by the mapper base. Like other mappers have done with other niches, Mazzerin took it upon himself to make sure metal songs had some representation in the game's forefront, though clearly not with new players as their target audience. Adding Mazzerin's mapping preferences to his music choice explains a lot about why his maps are so hard.
I used to map based on top players' skill levels because it's exciting to see people improve and fight for better scores on a single map rather than trying to gain more PP. I also don't like undermapping, skipping notes in the music for example, or creating underdone maps. Mappers often have a lack of emphasis in their maps, or the general difficulty is too low for a song. When I had just begun mapping, the people that helped me most were Undead Bananas and Jenny. I don't remember everything I was told to do and not do back then by them, but I remember that these people told me to focus on following music the most and keep mapping in order to improve.
Pretty standard advice there, but you also have to remember who it's coming from. Jenny is a mapper known for making some of the hardest maps around 2012, and so following the music likely meant even accounting for parts of a song that make for a crazily hard map. Along that line of thought, I also asked Mazzerin who influences mapping, since that could have easily played a role in why he focuses on high difficulty.
Actually, your initial maps with all the random jump patterns such as injection helped me develop my style further. I use such patterns in Apparition and Obsidian Crown Unbound.
Me with the past would have been like, my jumps are not random.
Really? They look so fucking random to me. I loved it actually.
I mean, I like how they look too, but they play terribly, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, that's the good thing. I love the fact that they play terribly. The Obsidian Crown Unbound jumps were so good. People kept breaking on the easy part. I loved it. Then there's also Golden Wolf. Can't say there's one single thing that inspired me from his maps, but he's just good at coming up with concepts that play and look good. Last one I like to mention is Skystar. What I took from his map is mostly his godlike visuals. When I map half-beat sections with 1/4 bursts, I often use maps like that as a reference because they place well, look good, and fit with the rest of my concepts well. It's so hard to think of examples. You know, most of these things kind of happen unconsciously, so it's really hard to think of examples.
Would you say that most of what you do mapping is unconscious?
Not really. The concepts I choose are based on sounds I hear, but I don't really know where the concepts come from. That's what I mean. No, it's kind of like learning new words. You hear them somewhere, but you don't know why you're using them. You just kind of heard them. And then you start noticing the same word everywhere.
I imagine most mappers have gone through that same sort of adopting mapping techniques unconsciously thing too. Like, for example, follow point aesthetics. It's a super minor part of map design and most people don't even consider it, but when I started noticing it in maps and incorporating it into my own, I began to see it everywhere, Mazzerin's maps especially. Anyway, it may be interesting, but Mazzerin's mapping background isn't too outstanding. Still though, his background in video games before OSU makes me think there's more reasons why he was able to successfully create the game's hardest ranked maps.
I'd say my career in League started in 2012 when I really wanted some RP, which are 5 points used for skins. With lots of grinding, we managed to become semi-okay or good, I guess, and got to participate in a bunch of larger offline tournaments, most important probably being DreamHack Summer 2013 and the Season 3 World Championship. I found out about those from League 2 because a bunch of streamers were playing it. I think people thought that playing Osu would make them better at other games, and so they used Osu as a game to warm up, for example, or to improve their reactions. Yeah, people really thought that Osu would make their reaction time faster. And Osu doesn't take long to play, and League queues and high tiers take a long while, so playing a 5-minute map isn't that much.
I guess that answers why Mr. Anti-Anime started playing an anime game. So Mazzerin ended up receiving semi-fame as both a League of Legends player and an Osu mapper, even one of which would have been a struggle. This means when joining Osu, he already had experience with moving his way to the top in a competitive video game and had experience with any criticism that accompanies the spotlight of a community. For example, this clip is something Mazzerin was well known for in his time as a pro League player.
Summertime, and 6 a.m. Pacific, we'll see all the LCS matches.
I don't really care, it's kind of funny. I bursted out laughing after I did it. My team was like, so you did an interview, right? I was like, yeah, I did it. And then a few hours later, my teammate was browsing Reddit and he was like, what did you do there? League has a much larger community, which makes it hard to compare to Osu's community. Toxicity in League is much more apparent, at least to players. In Osu, it's more about mapping most of the time, which is kind of weird. Maybe because mapping is much more competitive. Like in League, people tell you to die in a gas chamber and stuff. And in Osu, people are like, stop mapping. I learned some things in League that helped me in Osu as well. I already knew that attempting to get better at something repeatedly will probably make you better at it, but more importantly, I notice how high-profile individuals are treated in the community and how they react. If you go on Reddit, you can often find people aggressively discussing their favorite players in various ways, to which the players react differently. Some ignore and never read these comments, some go off social media completely after harassment, which sometimes extends even to solo queue matches or their Twitch streams. I had a teammate that performed badly a few times, and everyone who's Lithuanian personally kind of attacked him. Like my classmates would talk about him and how he's performing badly. Even my dad would, or yeah.
What?
I'm serious, my dad, yeah. All of this taught me how to react to toxic feedback in a way that doesn't affect me negatively. It's actually entertaining for me to see people harass you for a bad reason.
In other words, he knows what it's like to get hate as a League of Legends player, and those experiences were more than applicable when it came to angering an entire community of mappers by ranking absurdly difficult maps. The worst case being the first ranked 8-star map, Apparition.
2014, what was it, spring, I guess? I tried to rank it around that time, and community at the time wasn't used to 70-star maps being ranked very often, so people were even more skeptical of an 8-star map going for ranks, especially since it was made by a mapper with just one ranked map. Lots of players, including me, wanted harder maps to be ranked though, since most top scores were DT maps. 7-star unranked maps mostly consisted of low-quality, unpolished jump spam maps. Most BNs were afraid to touch high-star maps. It almost felt like it was forbidden to rank difficult maps. If you wanted to rank a hard map, you had to ask almost every top player to play it, and only then a BN would even dare to look at it. I struggled a lot with ranking it because it really was a mess. It was one of my first maps and I tried to polish it into a good map, which is not a good idea. It ended up being some weird, super inconsistent and ugly map. There were lots of people who disliked the map a lot, and for a good reason.
A skim through the thread could tell you that ranking the hardest map in the game isn't an easy feat. Half of all people are against it for one reason or another, regardless of how good or bad the map really is, and that's a story any record-breaking map could tell. However, times can change. What was once considered extreme becomes normalized as more people and more maps step up. There's a decent handful of ranked 8-star maps now, and nobody bats an eye when a new one is ranked. When it comes to mappers and their reputation, the same thing can apply too. During Apparition's journey, Mazzerin was no one, but after it succeeded to ranked and Mazzerin made a bunch of other equally difficult maps, the public's views changed, and I think that was essential to Mazzerin's ranking of the only 9-star map in the game, the Promethean Kings.
Most of the vocal community was against the div spike and thought I made it just to get the reward of the first 9-star ranked, which at the time made me quite angry because as time has shown, the div spike isn't even the hardest part. People never fail on the jumps, they all fail in the 1-4 streams right before the jumps, and some players such as Azerite even full comboed the jumps years ago with hidden hard rock. Top players recognize that the div spike is mostly fine, and so with the help of some modders and BNs, the map was ranked without any disqualifications. At the time, community was more used to high-star maps compared to 2 years ago when Apparition was ranked. There were lots of sets that included high-star Nomad maps. QITs were more lenient about letting such maps through to get ranked. BNs weren't afraid to icon them. Players were mostly positive about difficult maps or maps giving lots of PP while being easy to full combo, such as high-star TV sizes. And there were modders which were interested in modding maps that are difficult.
As you can tell by now, there's a lot of reasons why Mazzerin was able to manage his hard map accomplishments. He likes a genre of music that supports it, he knows how to climb in a competitive game, he's able to handle the critics, and through years of mapping, he's gained a reputation for making hard maps and therefore community acceptance. Oddly enough though, his opinion on why nobody else has ranked something harder than the Promethean Kings in the last 2 years is much less convoluted.
I think no one has ranked a higher star rating map since the Promethean Kings was ranked, simply because no one has tried to yet. I'd say maps like Illness Liland are even more difficult or on par with the Promethean Kings, but it got ranked without many problems. If someone made a higher star map than the Promethean Kings and wanted to rank it, it really wouldn't be that hard if it was good. I mean, I see a lot of bad maps that are really easy, but they get ranked anyways. No one really checks them, but as soon as a map is high star rating, it becomes like really known instantly for some reason, if it's going for ranked. When I wanted Apparition ranked, I was so stubborn I got like every single modder to mod it. If they didn't want to mod it, I would just call it the end and get it qualified. Then if they modded it, I would apply the mod and move on. That would make people either grow tired of trying to fix the map or they would just give up and eventually the map would be ranked. So like I'm surprised Apparition was ranked, and I think that the only reason it got ranked is because people got tired of modding it and simply gave up. That's the truth.
So yeah, now you know how the person behind the hardest ranked maps in the game feels about hard maps. Beyond that though, what this really shows is just how important it is to, as Mazzerin put it,
keep mapping in order to improve.
Every new mapper receives this advice, and the sentiment behind it put towards ranking is what made it possible for Mazzerin to advance as a mapper. He pushed for his impossible maps to get ranked so adamantly that he changed what was considered hard in the game, and he was able to achieve what he initially sought out to do, give maps of metal songs a prominent place in Osu. Anyway, that's about it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.